Brahmaratra upabrate Vasudeva numodita Anichantyo Yayurgopya Swagrihan Bhagavat Priya Brahma Ratre, the nighttime of Brahma. Upavrite, being completed. Vasudeva, by Lord Krishna. Anumodita, advised. Anichintya, Anichantya, unwilling. Yayu, went. Gopya, the Gopis. Swagrihan, to their homes. Bhagavat, of the Supreme Lord. Priya, the dear consorts. Translation. After an entire night of Brahma had passed, Lord Krishna advised the Gopis to return to their homes. Although they did not wish to do so, the Lord's beloved consorts complied with his command. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 8:17, Lord Krishna explains, by human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also is the duration of his night. Thus, 1,000 ages entered within a single 12-hour night when Lord Krishna performed his rasa dance. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti compares this inconceivable compression of time to the fact that many universes fit neatly within the 40-mile range of earthly Brindavan. Or one may consider that Mother Yashoda could not encircle the small abdomen of child Krishna with numerous ropes, and that at another time he manifested many universes within his mouth. The transcendence of spiritual reality above and beyond mundane physics is concisely explained in Srila Rupa Goswami's Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Evam prabho priyanam cha dhamnas cha samayasya cha avichintya prabhavatadvad atra kinchin nadurgatam. Nothing is impossible for the Lord, his dear devotees, his transcendental abode, or the time of his pastimes. For all these entities are inconceivably powerful. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti further explains that the word Vasudeva Nimodita indicates that Lord Krishna advised the Gopis to assure the success of these pastimes, you and I should keep them secret. The word Vasudev, a name of Krishna, also indicates Lord Krishna's plenary expansion, who acts as the presiding deity of consciousness. When the word Vasudeva is understood in this context, the word Vasudeva Numodita indicates that the presiding deity of consciousness, Vasudeva, manifested embarrassment and fear of their elders within the gopis' hearts, and therefore it was only with great reluctance that the young girls returned home. After an entire night of Brahma had passed, Lord Krishna advised the gopis to return to their homes. Although they did not wish to do so, the Lord's beloved consorts complied with his command. I am very grateful to be back with all of you once again. Thank you. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 33, entitled The Rasa Dance, text 38. There are 18,000 verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the very beginning, it is written, Dharma projita kaitavatra parama nirmatsaranam sata. That this cream of all Vedic literatures, the Srimad Bhagavatam, does not take into consideration any goal except the ultimate goal. In all spiritual paths or religions, throughout the world, throughout history, people mainly follow either to improve their economic situation, to increase their ability to enjoy within this world, through pleasures, through health, to gain higher degrees of emotional and physical enjoyment through piety and charity, morality, or seeing that ultimately all these things are disrupted by old age, disease, and death. They desire liberation, moksha. The Srimad Bhagavatam takes what is the ultimate goal for the vast majority of people and calls it Kaitava Dharma, external religion. The Bhagavad Purana deals with one subject, and that is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared to be the Purushartha Siromani, the crest jewel of all realizations. And that is the awakening of the innate, eternal, natural prema, or love of God, love of Krishna, that is within the heart. And to serve Krishna in whatever our field of life may be. Ahoitakiya pratihata, with pure devotion. Savai pung sang paro dharmo yato bhaktir hokshache. Ahoitaki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Parikshit Maharaj was a king. He was going to die within 7 days. For him it was an emergency. He didn't want a gradual religious education. He wanted to go right to the heart, to the conclusion, to the essence. What is the essence of all religions? What is the primary purpose and duty of a person who is about to die? And this was an answer that was given. That the supreme dharma is loving devotional service to the transcendent Lord. Such loving devotional service in order to completely satisfy the self, the soul. Satisfaction of the mind is flickering. Satisfaction of the senses is flickering. Satisfaction of other people on the material plane is unpredictable. But satisfaction of the true self is only when this service is rendered with a devotion that is uninterrupted by any circumstance and unmotivated by any type of egoism or selfishness. In other words, samsadhir haditoshana. Such devotional service is purely for the pleasure of the supreme object of our love, or Krishna. The culmination of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the 10th canto. We read the philosophy of bhakti. We learn in the previous cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam the science of creation. The inconceivable power and potency of the Lord and the various levels of realization. The culmination is to understand Krishna. When that supreme absolute truth descended from the spiritual world into this world to perform pastimes of most intimate love with his own devotees. And the culmination of the 10th canto are these 5 chapters of the Rasa Lila, which you have been discussing and reading from here in the Srimad Bhagavatam classes at Radha Gopinath Temple. So, in the previous verses, we read how Krishna wanted to satisfy his devotees. The gopis, they were innocent, simple, and pure. They were already way beyond all the other yogic processes. They just wanted to serve and love Krishna. In their total humility, they didn't think themselves in any way superior to anyone else, because that kind of mentality is due to some sort of starvation in the heart, where we have this need. I'm better than others. And it's unquenchable, because however much we get, there's always a competition that we have to somehow or other overcome. Birth after birth after birth is this insecurity to try to somehow or other attain a superior position, and then against the odds of time and against the odds of the world of dualities, we try to keep this position. Kamala dala jala jivana talamala. But it is all like a drop of water on a lotus leaf, at the best. Our wealth, our power, our fame, our so-called superior position. Drop of water on a lotus cannot remain. at any moment. One little wind. You see, the lotus leaf cannot keep that drop on it. Because against the power of the lotus leaf, a wind will come. And when the wind comes, the water slips right off. And there's not even a trace that it ever existed. That's the nature of these things. Yet we see in the huge population of humanity within this world, almost everyone is trying to get that drop and trying to cling to that drop. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. This human life is very special. It's extremely rare. Because in the human life we have the opportunity to realize the eternal treasure of Krishna Prema. The highest, most inclusive liberation. But Maya is so strong. This illusory energy induces a human being. The Jivatma may have passed through 8,400,000 species of life. And please do not take this lightly. Because in most all of these 8,400,000 species of life, we have a body that we're just as attached to as we have now. We have mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and friends. And we're looking for food, and we're looking for protection, and we're looking for pleasure. The animals, the birds, the fish, they suffer just like we do. They cling to their happiness just like we do. Death is traumatic. Yesterday, I took an airplane from Patna to Delhi and then changed flights to Mumbai. The flight from Patna boarded at about 8 o'clock at night. And we had to walk through the tarmac and walk up the steps and go into the airplane. And in the airplane, and I was seated near the front. People like to be in the front. But on this day, what you like to do is the worst thing you could do. Because there were hundreds and hundreds of hungry mosquitoes. Because it was dark outside, it was light in the plane, so all the mosquitoes from all directions, they flew inside the airplane. And they were all near the front. And literally, when you go in the airplane, there was just swarms and swarms and swarms of mosquitoes. And I was thinking, because people were very upset. There were people who were complaining, I paid so much money for this airplane, and I paid extra to sit in the front, and now I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes. Why don't you people spray the airplane and kill all these mosquitoes? And people were swatting mosquitoes and everything. And I was just thinking that whoever was swatting and whoever was, they didn't even spray, I don't think. Because by the time I reached Mumbai, they were eating me all the way here. But anyways, that mosquito, with no, for most people, devotees are supposed to be different. But for most mosquitoes, when you swap and kill a mosquito, you don't even think twice about it. Yes? But for that mosquito, do you know what a trauma, what a crisis, what a tragedy that is? for something that's not even worth thinking about for a second? That mosquito, the reason he's biting you is because that mosquito is desperately trying to enjoy and maintain its life. He's biting you because he's totally attached to the body he's in and the senses. Now, you may not think it's too significant, the senses of a mosquito. Now, you may not have expected this type of explanation of the Rasa Lila. But we'll come to that later. We must approach it with some realization. That little mosquito loves its life. It might have a tiny little brain. I don't even know what kind of brain. The senses are so tiny and small. But us compared to the mosquito, what are the senses of the demigods? What is the brain of the demigods? Compared to the devatas in the higher regions of this universe, our brains and senses are like little mosquitoes. Everything is very relative. So that mosquito is going through a major, major crisis and trauma of death. The concept of paradukkha dukkhi, that another person's happiness is my happiness. Another person's suffering is my suffering. Not only makes us compassionate and respectful to all living beings, but it also actually helps us appreciate the opportunity we have in our human life. Because everything is so flickering and so fleeting. So we have gone through birth, old age, disease, and death probably way more than 8,400,000 times with the same kind of experience that you're going to have of death in this life if you're not self-realized. That's what it takes to come to this human form. And in this human form, we have the opportunity to understand our eternal nature, our eternal goal. And all of our dharmas, all of our duties, responsibilities, our religions, our relationships, are meant to harmonize with and facilitate this ultimate goal of life. That's what bhakti yoga is. The path by which everything is harmonized with pleasing Krishna, with loving Krishna, with liberating ourselves from the ego and the attachments of the ego. So the gopis, their only desire was to please Krishna. Many did the Katyayani Vrat, which is just recently, according to our Vaishnav calendar, where they performed simple austerities to worship Katyayani, the pleasure potency of the Lord, for the purpose of getting Krishna as their husband. They were very young. They didn't want Krishna as their husband the same way that somebody may like some famous Bollywood person as their husband. Krishna is supremely beautiful, supremely attractive, supreme in every way. But they wanted him as their husband so that they could exclusively, without any distraction or diversion by anyone or anything else in life, serve him and please him. It wasn't for themselves, it was for Krishna. And Krishna performed the incredible pastime of taking the clothing of gopis and ultimately returning it to them and promising them that he will fulfill this desire. On Sarat Purnima, Krishna, through his own inconceivable spiritual potency, he orchestrated the whole of Brindavan to accommodate the deepest loving exchanges. This is what Brindavan is in the spiritual realm. Brinda Devi is the supervisor of the various fulfillment of Krishna and Radha's desires. Through orchestrating with the cows and the birds and the trees, and Yogamaya Devi, Purnamasi, Balaram, who expands himself as Brajbhumi. They are all making everything a perfect setting for loving exchanges. How the moon rose. We get some conception of how beautiful it is when the moon rises. But it's rising in Mumbai. And it's a planet called Chandra. But in Brindavan, this is all the internal spiritual potency of the Lord. Brindavan is not of this world. That moonrise is Sri Radha, through her potencies of Brinda and Purnamasi and Yogamaya, she is creating the most beautiful possible environment for Krishna's pleasure. And Krishna plays his flute. Bamsi. Under the banyan tree, Bamsivat. And calls all gopis to come to him. And the Bhagavatam tells how the gopis, they put every other consideration in life aside to give pleasure to Krishna. This is love. They risked everything. They risked their physical and emotional security and safety. They risked being ridiculed and condemned by society. They risked being homeless dwellers of the forest for the rest of their life without even a consideration, because that was all inconsequential. The only thing that was really important was how we give pleasure to Krishna. That is love. We get a sense of that of a father or mother's love for a child in this world. But when that spirit of selfless, unconditional love is purified and magnified unlimitedly, then we get a hint of what that spirit of love for Krishna may be. And Krishna reciprocates with his love unlimitedly. When they came to be with Krishna, ultimately Krishna tested them, and then they danced. And Shukadev Goswami, who is a great renunciate sannyasi, we already read in previous chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam what was his renunciation. He was so liberated from any desires for material enjoyment. He was content to remain in the womb of his mother. How content is that? Why should I go anywhere else? Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Satchidananda. I am eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. He was Brahman realized. He was a pure, realized Brahmavadi when he was in the womb of his mother. So he decided, why go out into the world and why do anything? I'm here. This is where I am, good enough. He was a baby in the womb of his mother. 12 years he stayed there. Now mothers, only you can understand what kind of situation that is for another mother. Us men, we theoretically say, oh, that's a long time. But I don't know what it's like, at least in this lifetime, I don't know what it's like. 12 years. And ultimately, Krishna and Vyasadeva, his father, had to somehow or other induce him to come out by giving him an experience of something higher than Brahman realization. Higher than moksha is prema. Or, according to the acharyas, the ultimate realization of moksha is prema. Prema means the awakening of ecstatic love. When we suffer, we want peace. But the heart yearns for something more than peace. Yearns for love. To feel Krishna's infinite love and to love Krishna infinitely is the innermost nature of the soul. So Krishna and Gopis, the Rasa Lila is the dynamic, spiritual expression of that love for each other. In certain realms of the spiritual world, just existence is the bliss of peace. But in the Vaikuntha realm, the love of the heart, the love of the soul, because there is no material bodies, there is no material ego in this spiritual realm. There's only pure Atma and pure Paramatma, the Supreme. And there's pure Ras. So that loving relationship is expressed in infinite varieties of ways. And Krishna danced with Gopis. And here we find, at the end of the discussion of rasa dance, Shukadeva Goswami, this great sannyasi, who considers this the highest revelation of spiritual perfection, the Ras Lila, he's giving us today's verse. Just to show us that what he just explained is so transcendent to anything of this world. This dance lasted an entire night of Brahma. What is a night of Brahma? Now, a night for a mosquito is practically almost a lifetime of a mosquito. Yes, mosquitoes don't last that long. What is 100 years for us is very different. Can you imagine a mosquito living 100 years? Some insects only live a few days. But they go through the same cycle we do in 100 years in those few days. So Brahma, his one night is 4,320,000,000 years. Can you calculate that?